So Biden's top aide dodging questions as he arrived this morning. Aisha Hasni tried to ask him about Hunter Biden and the Ambien comments in an interview he gave just now. Take a listen.
Hi, Mr. Klain. What do you think about Hunter Biden's claims that the president was on Ambien before the debate? Do you agree with him? Did you ever see the president taking Ambien before the debate? What do you think was going on with him before the debate? You said he was tired.
Okay, that was a moment ago. Now live, Aisha Hasni's on the Hill. Didn't get much, but you tried. Good morning.
I got a smile. Hey, good morning to you. He is inside the room now speaking with the Oversight Committee. And James Comer, the chairman of the committee, just told me before he tucked into that room that he is going to grill him on those claims from Hunter Biden that his dad was given Ambien before the debate. And that is the reason for that disastrous debate performance. So we will see what Ron Klain says about that. Now, he was not chief of staff during that time, but he was heavily involved in the former president's debate prep, and he has been talking about his experience, his observations during that time. In fact, he told author Chris Whipple that Biden was, quote, exhausted and out of it in those days before that debate. An excerpt from the book Uncharted reads, 25 minutes into the second mock debate, the president was done for the day. I'm just too tired to continue, and I'm afraid of losing my voice here, and I feel bad. That's what Klain said, according to the excerpt. And then he said, I just need some sleep. I'll be fine tomorrow. And he went off to bed. So that is a concern for the Oversight Committee. What was going on around that time? The chairman wants to know whether the president was using a controlled substance and how it impacted his decision making. Now, Hunter Biden has already backtracked a bit from that interview. He interviewed with YouTuber Andrew Callahan, and then he clarified to ABC News that he wasn't saying his father took Ambien right before that debate. He was simply describing the president's travel schedule. It will be interesting to see what Ron Klain does today. There have been some other Biden insiders that have shown up here on Capitol Hill and pled the fifth. However, I am told by committee sources that they believe that Ron Klain will talk and that this could go on for a couple of hours.
Okay,
so
Aisha, don't mean to put you on the spot. How many have chosen to speak and how many have not? Is it about 50-50 or no?
It's probably more leaning towards people who did not speak. I believe we have 3 so far, including the doctor who came and pled the fifth, and only about 2 people so far that have actually sat down. And one, actually, the last one went on for about 5 hours. So they do expect, I just talked with committee sources, and they told me they do expect this one to go on for a couple of hours today,
Got
too.
it. Okay, Aisha, thanks. We'll be in touch, all right? Give us headlines when you get them. Aisha Hasni there in the hallways in Capitol Hill. All right.
All right, more on this. Let's bring in New York Post columnist Miranda Devine. She is a Fox News contributor. All right, Miranda, if you were a betting lady, are you going with Ron Klain is talking today or he's pleading the fifth?
Well, there seems some suggestion that he may talk, but I think that considering that both Anthony Bernal, who is another member of the inner sanctum, the so-called Politburo that was protecting Biden from the public finding out what was wrong with him, Anthony Bernal's pleaded the fifth, so did Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor. So I'm not sure whether Ron Klain is going to talk. The only reason he might is because he stopped being Biden's chief of staff and having daily contact with him halfway through his term. And he really just observed him when he was helping with debate prep right before at Camp David. And he has said on the record that he was shocked by the state and the decline of the president since he'd last seen him. Whether or not he was unwell, he wasn't sure, but it was a surprise to him. So he may express that because it doesn't incriminate him in any way.
Okay, so we've got the quote you just referred, Miranda. Chris Whipple in his book Uncharted, all right? Klain recounted Biden being exhausted and out of it during debate prep. Call for number 1, guys, put it up. Quote, the president was fatigued, befuddled, and disengaged. Klain feared the debate with Trump would be a nationally televised disaster, end quotes. He was right about that.
He was right. And, you know, it shows how little pull he had at the time, or how little concern he had for Joe Biden. I have always found it baffling that those inner sanctum, the Politburo who had protected Joe Biden from himself for so long, including Jill Biden, allowed him to go on stage in that state. You could tell from the minute he walked on stage, he was like a deer in the spotlight. He was looking around, lost, and the minute he opened his mouth, you could tell it wasn't going to be a good night for him. It is surprising, considering they had juiced him up and made sure that he was able to sort of stand at the State of the Union and read from a teleprompter. They put him out there without any protection. You know, he didn't have notes to rely on. He didn't have an earpiece. He was just on live television late at night after his bedtime. And presumably when Hunter Biden talks about Ambien, he's talking about a cocktail of drugs that his father was given to get him through the sort of the jet lag, even the minimal work that he was doing as president is still arduous for an 81-year-old. So whether the drug cocktail was deliberately withheld or whether they just stuffed up, I don't know.
Miranda, the big kahuna, obviously, for House oversight investigators is Hunter Biden himself. A lot of hope, no chance he's going to testify. But here's Byron Donalds on with Bill yesterday. I want to get your reaction.
If Hunter Biden wants to talk, he should come into the Oversight Committee and we can question him under oath about what type of drugs he was taking. Look, at the end of the day, we know that Joe Biden wasn't mentally capable of discharging his duties. And the reason why I say we know this with confidence is because every official we have brought in from the Biden White House is pleading the fifth. They don't even want to answer basic questions about Joe Biden's competency. So if Hunter Biden wants to talk on podcasts, maybe he should come into the Oversight Committee. We'd love to have him back.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, Hunter Biden seems to love the sound of his own voice. He's spoken on 2 podcasts this week for 4 hours plus. Yes, and I mean, if you listen to any of his voice memos on his laptop, you would know that he has a lot of opinions about a lot of things, and he has pretensions of political ambitions. And I think he'd like to follow in his father's footsteps. I don't think that's a joke. I think he really genuinely believes he has a chance. So I wouldn't be surprised
Miranda,
if he
real
jumped
quick,
at the chance.
what makes you think that he has political ambitions?
Well, his friends, his former friends have told me that he's spoken about it. And he also wrote in his memoir about how hurt he was by his ex-wife Kathleen scoffing at him when he expressed his political ambitions after his brother Beau's death, after the funeral. And she said to him, you can't be serious. You've just been drummed out of the Navy, Naval Reserves, after his first weekend on cocaine charges, so or testing positive for cocaine. So she didn't think that he had any chance of going into politics, but I think if Hunter is anything like his father, he is full of self-belief and delusional in a lot of ways. And Joe Biden's delusions got him right to the top, so who knows?
Miranda, thanks for coming on. We're waiting for Ron Klain's testimony. Aisha says it's going to be a long day. If anyone knew about an autopen, it would be Ron Klain. Miranda, thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.